All right, so I wanted to do this as a little bit of a series of updates in terms of this channel is actually all about looking at how we can obviously put ourselves out there, but also how we can feel very much alone and very much that we're the only ones going through that. And also where we know the intelligent side of our brain is going, this is a logical move, this is understandable, this is making you feel uncomfortable, but the emotional side of it is going, I am way out of my depth. So this is the first month of, or the first, I've done 4 videos online now, and that was a really big, scary step for me. And the last one really got up in my head a lot about the fact that I found it very difficult to put together the fact that I couldn't get this really basic, simple concept of movement out into a product that I felt happy with, a project that I felt happy with. And I think this is a really important thing because I know as a coach that you spend a lot of time learning very difficult and complex things, but then you also learn how to actually make them into a very simple and understandable, easily digestible. And for me, the skill of going from one-on-one talking or one-on-one presentation and really nailing it down to an audience to then going to a concept of, you could be looking at it any different time of day, you could be absolutely in a total horror show for yourself and you don't know how to receive that information. And so it just made me overthink completely the whole dissemination of the information of how I was going to give it. So I was really struggling with how I could do that and how I could do that without sounding either really patronizing or where I was giving that, you must do this, you must do that, rather than, I know for myself, every now and then you obviously need a big kick up the bum to get going, but most of the time it's getting there through your own understanding of people asking certain questions of you and how you come through that process. So in explaining that, I was in that movement, if you look at that, I had to film that over about 5 or 6 different days and goes and locations. And of course, being new to this process of YouTubing, I found it very complicated to know what I'd already said, know what I was trying to say, then going and editing, and I just found it really, really daunting. And also because I'm still getting used to talking to the camera, I found this really hard in terms of getting myself up, getting myself out there to put up there again, and then coming back and looking at it and going, that wasn't, like I had a time where the sound hadn't turned on properly and it didn't capture, so most of that footage I couldn't use. I had to go back out and do it again. And then other times where the weather was being quite uncooperative, let's say, and this made it really hard to get any flow for myself, let alone flow in my thoughts. And going then back and trying to piece together that continuity of trying to give a very simple message of encouragement seeming insurmountably difficult. So I gave myself a really hard time about the fact I couldn't get that message in my own mind and then also getting it out there to you guys. And this is exactly what this channel is about, because I recognized that I was actually making myself, I was being too hard on myself, and recognizing that just editing that amount for me at this stage was a significantly difficult task. And also understanding that even though, yes, the topic itself was simple, getting it out there as a simple message was quite difficult. And yet I was really making it really hard on myself for not understanding that I'm new to this process, and I was trying to do everything all at once and be everything to all at once for everyone. And I knew immediately that wasn't going to work. So this is this rawness and those feelings from doing that process. This is me acknowledging the fact that I got a little overwhelmed and I was disappointed in myself with the product that I came up with. of production, and it just allowed me this morning to actually go out and have a little bit of time to myself. I'm very lucky. I know I'm very lucky in the fact that in my job I can meet with some clients, but then I could also take myself out. I went for a bit of a walk. I went and enjoyed some of nature, which is absolutely fantastic, and just let myself relax and let myself acknowledge the fact that I'm already on a big step forward in my own progression, and already I've learned a lot from that. Even though it wasn't what I had hoped I could produce, it was still a big learning curve for me of understanding how I can think of the subject. And also, I've got to acknowledge, for me at this time, how much I'm stepping towards my comfort zone and how much I'm stepping towards a task that can be overwhelming for the timeframes I've set myself. So the other big thing with that was that I've always found this very difficult as a person, that I was told as a kid and as I lived my life that unless you worked hard, that you weren't actually, worthy of receiving money or worthy of receiving praise. And the other thing with this whole process, which I've found actually quite challenging, it's funny how you get up in your own head, and even though it's not illogical in any way, that once I've produced this, and once then it hopefully later on goes down the track of being monetized and hopefully becomes somewhat successful, even though that's not its main purpose. Its main purpose is to still be out there and remind myself that it's actually to show people that you're not alone in your thoughts and to find a tribe that's around you. But the other part of that was that whole barrier of, unless you're working hard, then you don't deserve to get paid. So if you're being monetized later on down the track and you're monetizing for a video that you're not even working on at the time, you haven't done that work, it's that really strange contradictory thing where then it's unworthy unless you're doing it actually at the time. Unless you've put in that time in that moment, then that somehow doesn't make it valuable to other people or valuable that you should receive money for it. And I'm just trying to break that up, my own habit of, I'm a sole trader and have been for many, many years, and quite happy to do, big presentations and things like that. But it's always been, paid for in that moment. And it's very much, work that you put in is rewarded in that way. And to me, this is that whole concept of you laying foundations for payoff towards a later date, and also for being rewarded for, as they say, where you're asleep in that passive income stage and you wake up and you've earned money. And that whole self-sabotage in that situation is a very weirdly undercurrent for me of being okay with that's the fact that I have put in the work, I've put in the learning, I've put in the knowledge to get to where that hopefully should be. It's very much like when your expertise is being asked and you've come up with an answer within 5 or 10 seconds, and that you don't feel then you can justify then asking for a certain price. Whereas it was 25 years of actually being in the blood, sweat and tears that actually got you that answer so quickly. So that has always been a weird paradox for me. I'm getting more comfortable with that, but I must say that I've found it really hard to be used to that stage, and even now I was starting to tighten up. So this is why I want to do these sort of every 5, 6, 10 videos where I do a little reflection and review, because you're remembering the rawness at the time. And the rawness at the time is what we all feel about our journey through anxiety, through trauma, that seems overwhelming, and then hopefully we work on those tools to get us further into our future that we want to have. And it's those little undercurrent things that sometimes can bring us down the hardest, because they can be our roadblock that we actually keep coming back and avoiding. And so for me, it's obviously trying to do as good a job as you possibly can and try and present as well as you can, so it's beneficial to you guys. It's actually not so that I can feel good, it's so that I feel that people that are watching it are going to get help and feel a sense of, okay, I understand that now, and I understand that I'm also not alone with these sorts of feelings. So this is partly why I've decided to jump on today and do a quick, more or less unedited view of that. And what I also want to share with you at the end of this video is a couple of on social media memes and posts that have sometimes meant a lot to me in different times. And I say one of those, which you'll see at the end, is about this very thought of where you having lots of thoughts and ideas and inspirations, but actually nailing it down to one simple, powerful message can be quite difficult. But it's only through practice and through gaining the knowledge and putting yourself out there, seeing how people react, I know from my own journey what has really worked for me. And I also know from my own journey with different things that there's no possible right moment to say the right thing all the time, because everyone's right moment is at a different stage. So allowing myself to remember that sometimes people need to have that, you can do this. Sometimes it's, why can't you do this? Sometimes it's, why are you doing this? All those different things, they're still said with the same amount of concern and same amount of love and the same amount of willingness to help, but it can really nail down at different times for different situations. So this is about that journey and being okay with the fact that I didn't feel happy with that upload. And what I learned from it was I've got to understand what I'm capable of in terms of putting myself in front of this camera, but also putting myself out there in terms of being able to edit, understanding how editing, when I had 10 different themes coming at me and really big slices, and I found that really difficult. I still find it very hard to, I had some brain injuries, and so sometimes concentrating when you're feeling overwhelmed can be a little daunting. So, gasping all those strings back together and taking a moment to step back from that and realize that it's okay, it's still a learning process. And hopefully the whole theme of the channel is for people to understand that you're not alone with that. So this is a very long-winded way of saying that I need to understand my own process as well, and also that allows you guys to see how much this means to me, and hopefully then how much it means that you guys can feel that recovery is all about just doing the best you can and learning from that, progressing from there, and willing to take another chance and willing to make sure that you understand the weather climate around you. In other words, the people that are around you, the ones that are really hoping that you'll do well, the ones that are hoping that you actually will fail, the ones that are indifferent, and the ones that will ask you the questions that they mightn't be necessarily your inner circle, but they'll be ones that make you question, and question for a good reason, question for the fact that, am I really in this for the right reason? And the answer came back this morning that still wanting to do this and still really keen to do this. It's just understanding where my limits are at the moment and what I have to do to making sure they keep going forward for the future I'm hoping for this channel. Anyway, it's just still a reminder for me that it's similar to when I was first doing some blogs, that I found that quite difficult to spin all the little different threads back in together and process that. And this is very similar, except now I'm putting myself in front of a camera and actually talking as well, which is, I find, most people find quite confronting. Anyway, hope you keep joining me on this journey. Best of luck in your future. Do the best you can. Be kind to yourself and then be kind to others. Thank you for joining me.